Standoff between Serb gunmen and Kosovo authorities at a monastery near the border with Serbia ended on Sunday night, following a Kosovo police operation to regain control of the area. The announcement came after a chaotic day that began when a police patrol was ambushed near the village of Banjka, killing one officer and wounding another. The gunmen fled to a nearby monastery where they barricaded themselves in and traded gunfire with Kosovo police for several hours. At least 3 assailants were shot dead in the confrontation. Kosovo's Prime Minister Albin Kurti later joined hundreds of people outside a Pristina police station at a vigil for the Kosovar Albanian killed earlier in the day. Kurti called the ambush an act of terrorism and pinned the blame on the Serbian government. Alexander Vučić has condemned the killing of the police officer, but remains firm in putting the blame on Kurti for persecuting Kosovo's ethnic Serbs. A man has been arrested in connection with the killing of the police officer.
Ethnic Armenian refugees from Nagorno-Karabakh have begun arriving in Armenia, fleeing the fighting after Azerbaijan launched an offensive to take control of the breakaway territory. A few dozen residents, mainly women, children and the elderly, have arrived at the reception centre set up by the Armenian government. Thousands of people were evacuated from cities and villages affected by the latest fighting and taken to a Russian peacekeepers' camp in Nagorno-Karabakh before going on to Armenia. Azerbaijan retook the area inhabited by some 120,000 ethnic Armenians last week. It says it wants to reintegrate them as equal citizens.
About the armed forces, what armed forces is doing right now, and this is a close cooperation with Russian peacekeepers to conduct the demilitarization and also. Demilitarization and also support civilians, those that need support.
Ethnic Armenian leaders have said they're in Russian-mediated talks with Azerbaijan to organise the withdrawal process and the handling of civilians displaced by the fighting.
French President Emmanuel Macron announced on Sunday that France will end its military presence in Niger and put its ambassador out of the country. This comes after the democratically elected president Mohamed Bazoum was deposed in a coup in July. Here to tell us more is international correspondent Annelise Bourges, reporting from Paris.
France is ending its military cooperation with Niger and withdrawing all its troops from the country. The announcement was made by French President Emmanuel Macron late on Sunday during an interview, during which he also said that the French ambassador to the country would be returning home. He repeatedly said that France's sole objective in the region was to fight terrorism, and that the authorities now in charge of Niger were, quote, friends of trouble. Emmanuel Macron insisting that all French presence will indeed be removed from Niger as soon as possible. Now, the question is, of course, how they will do that. Authorities in Niger had announced on Saturday that they would be closing the country's airspace to all French aircraft and aircraft chartered by France. Annelise Bourges in Paris for Euronews.
Emergency workers in Libya have recovered a further 23 bodies in the flood-stricken city of Derna. 2 teams are being formed to speed up the documenting of missing individuals. The first will continue recording bodies recovered at sea, while the other will focus on retrieving bodies that were buried randomly at the beginning of the catastrophe. Heavy rains triggered deadly floods which burst 2 dams, sending a wall of water through the eastern city. Between 4,000 and 11,000 are thought to have died, with at least 40,000 displaced.
Television studios and striking writers have reached a tentative agreement after days of talks. While the agreement still needs to be ratified by members of the Writers Guild of America, it marks a significant turning point in the nearly 5-month-long strike. The historic work stoppage has frozen production and paralyzed much of Hollywood. The terms of the agreement are not as yet known. Environmental activists attempted to stop the Berlin Marathon from going ahead on Sunday after throwing paint and lying on the road at the start of the race. Several protesters were pulled away by police. The eco-protesters, known as the Last Generation, ran onto the road and began spray painting bright orange paint at the runners. Several activists were taken into custody and one security officer was injured during the event. Over 45,000 people were taking part in the 45k race, which continued as planned despite the interruption.
Since March, Scotland's waters have been gripped by an unprecedented Category 4 marine heatwave, an unusual event which has caused mass marine mortalities. For some of Scotland's salmon farms, the staggering 4-degree temperature increase has led to a heightened risk of sea lice infestations. A recent investigation uncovered alarming evidence on 5 farms where fish were observed covered in the invasive sea lice.
Marine heat waves are becoming more frequent, which creates this optimal breeding reservoir for sea lice to rampantly reproduce. And these are the things that eat the skin, the mucus, the blood of the salmon. And, these can expel out into the wider environment in their millions.
Sea lice, typically found in low densities in the wild, have become a growing concern. An exacerbating factor is the increasing sea temperature.
2022 was a record-breaking year with salmon deaths doubling. This year the outlook is even grimmer. An alarming 8.9 million fish have been reported as dead on Scottish salmon farms in 2023 already.
And while salmon farming was once seen as a potential solution to helping wild stocks replenish, sea lice are now making it a problem as they're spreading from the farms to wild salmon.
Salmon farming was seen as a sort of salvation, and then of course, the complexities become more apparent. And right now, the numbers and size of wild salmon continue to drop. It's tragic.
The salmon industry says it prioritises the well-being of the fish and stresses the technologies and innovations it uses against the sea lice. But there are other threats that come from rising sea temperatures. Jellyfish thrive in warmer waters, and they can both sting the salmon and block their gills. Across Europe and the world, rising sea temperatures in 2023 tested marine ecosystems and aquaculture.
Any sudden big rise that gets beyond what the animals are used to can cause stress to the point where they will die. We could see mass mortality of aquaculture, whether they be fish or shellfish.
Salmon is one of the UK's top exports, but this year around a quarter of farm salmon perished. And whilst innovative solutions are being explored, the global challenge of increasing sea temperatures will continue to affect both those who farm and fish and the marine life they oversee.
Counting down to the end of a 7-year mission. Celebrations in the control room.
And touchdown abuse.
As 250 grams of space dust gathered over 6 billion kilometers away on the Bennu asteroid is safely delivered to Utah. Its cargo may help answer key questions about life on Earth.
The key objective for me, and one of the driving objectives of this program, is to try to understand, did carbon-rich asteroids like Bennu deliver the compounds that may have led to the origin of life on our planet, the origin of Earth as a habitable world? And so we don't want biological organisms interacting with this, so we plan to exclude it from any contact with bacteria or anything else that might compromise our scientific investigation.
In a tweet on X, NASA declared the expedition would take scientists 4.5 billion years back in time. But that journey all hinged on a lengthy return mission into space, lifting off in 2016, reaching Bennu in 2018, and starting harvesting samples in 2020. Only then could the capsule begin its long journey down to Earth.
Ramener son ambassadeur. Et donc, dans les prochaines heures, notre ambassadeur, avec plusieurs diplomates, rentreront en France. et nous mettons fin à notre coopération militaire avec les autorités de fait du Niger, car elles ne veulent plus lutter contre le terrorisme. Elle sera organisée dans le temps, dans les semaines à venir, mais c'est la fin de cette coopération. Parce que nous ne sommes pas là pour participer à la vie politique, pour être les otages en quelque sorte de putschistes. Mais je vais être très clair. On le voit déjà aujourd'hui au Mali. Ils vont rentrer de manière ordonnée dans les semaines et les mois qui viennent. Et là, nous concerterons avec les putschistes parce que nous voulons que ça se fasse dans le calme.
Mais d'ici la fin de l'année.
Mais d'ici la fin de l'année.
NASA's first ever asteroid sample return. It has been incredible.
NASA scientists were celebrating on Sunday after a space capsule carrying the agency's first ever asteroid specimen to be brought to Earth parachuted into a designated zone in the Utah desert earlier in the day. The capsule was released from the robotic spacecraft OSIRIS-REx when it finally came close enough to Earth. It had actually collected its sample 3 years ago from the asteroid named Bennu.
We can't wait to crack into it.
At a news conference, OSIRIS-REx principal investigator Dante Loretta laid out the goals for studying Bennu.
The key objective for me, and one of the driving objectives of this program, is to try to understand, did carbon-rich asteroids like Bennu deliver the compounds that may have led to the origin of life on our planet?
Loretta also said NASA went through extensive planetary protection reviews to make sure it was safe to bring home.
Bennu is a near-Earth asteroid. Probably material from this asteroid has been delivered to the Earth at some point in the past. It's also a very small body that's constantly exposed to ionizing radiation, and no life forms that we know would be able to survive that kind of environment. So very, very low risk. In fact, we're more worried about Earth biology contaminating the sample.
Discovered in 1999, Bennu is classified as a small near-Earth asteroid, as it passes relatively close to our planet every 6 years, though scientists think it's unlikely to make impact. The final descent and landing of the sample, shown on a NASA live stream, kept a 6-year joint mission between the U.S. Space Agency and the University of Arizona. It's only the third asteroid sample ever, and by far the biggest, brought back to Earth for analysis.
Revelation, chapter 20, verse 4, as it reads. And I saw thrones, and they sat upon them, and judgment was given unto them, and I saw the souls of them that were beheaded for the witness of Yahushua and for the word of the Heavenly Father, and which had not worshipped the beast, neither his image, neither had received his mark upon their foreheads or in their hands. And they lived and reigned with Hamashiach, Yahushua, 1,000 years. All praise and honor and glory to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushua, Ba'ashem Wakah Kwadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders, the great millstone. Peace and salutations to the four corners of the earth for the 144,000 and the chosen, and 1/3 of the elect. And to you, I say, Shalom. Shalom to Ha'akim, Wa'akwath, and to all those young and new and faithful into this truth. And to all the brothers out there pushing this word in truth and sincerity. Yeah, Salakia for that last abrupt ending. Hit the stop button, you know. So I'm gonna keep it honest. I made a mistake and hit the wrong button. End up hitting the stop. You know how it is. You can't go back and, you know, it don't work like a pause button. So talk about a vexation. All right. Speaking of all the vexations that you saw earlier on the news clippings, what's going on around here? You saw how situations is being done with our people, and of course the 1/3 is among them. Okay, all right. I spoke in earlier lessons about shaking, and the great shaking up, as the Lord is sifting, his elect, separating his people from the hard-headed 2/3 and other heathens around the globe. All right. What is vexing also is how you just see Edomites, constantly strive against the Lord. All right. They go out their way to go outside the planet, go out in space and search for answers, because they don't believe in the Heavenly Father to begin with, right? So they come back with things. So it's spoken about how in these last days, how creatures unheard of are gonna be out and about. All that mixes in with the imagination. What could be? It could be from any direction of situations. All right, these devils are man-making stuff in labs. You saw that movie, Jurassic Park. How those fake dinosaurs ended up becoming real monsters. Okay, remember how that went? You're gonna have some of that. You're gonna have some iRobot. You're gonna have some of I Am Legend, Terminator, all mixed up, and then some. You got the dogs out here, already out here trotting, taking pictures. Don't be surprised if, already things and hills already getting kicked over. Okay. You got all kind of things already getting ready to pop off. Unheard of. Okay. Unheard of situations with creatures being made. And here they is bringing stuff from outer space. Okay. Bringing stuff in from outer space in capsules. Ain't no telling who DNA or who they done cut up or put in there or combine whatever. Took embryos, probably had something in there. Ain't no telling what these devils, done done. Let me see. Let me get Ecclesiastes. Read Ecclesiastes. Ecclesiastes, to give me some nice material which leads me the apology. I misread in the last lesson. I read the wrong scripture. You can find in the comments of the last lesson the precepts I was looking for to go into that lesson. Okay, I could read them off in this one, but I just you find new things to go into. I found new precepts to add into this lesson here. Let me get it so I can hold up for a minute. Bear with me. Actually, what I was trying to get to at the end of that last lesson was about that chip. All right, the 2/3 are going to line up. Okay, they gonna get down for that bag, for that size of rice grain, 11.5 millimeters. Biocompatible glass capsule, silicon microchip, tuner capacitor, copper antenna coil. I'm gonna say it again. The 2/3 gonna be down for that bag. Insertion of that 11.5 millimeter biocompatible glass capsule, silicon microchip, tuner capacitor, copper antenna coil insertion by way of palisade into their skin. Alright? As I say, they gonna be down for that. Alright? What's vexing about the 2/3 is they will sell your ass out in a second. They'll sell my ass down the street. Okay? How they say they sell you down the river without a boat and a paddle, you know? Ain't that how the floods come these days? You know? These 2/3 are getting caught up in these floods and these flames and these forest fires and droughted out and shook up in earthquakes, things falling on them because they don't fear the Lord. I don't feel one bit of them. Don't give one, you know what I'm saying? Don't care. Don't shed no tears for them, and you shouldn't either. Especially if you fear the Lord and it's of the 1/3 of hopeful elect. Okay? Especially if you're a hopeful elect. So you get this Ecclesiastes chapter 6 verse 2. Chapter 6 verse 2. About to make the same mistake again, Salakia. 6 verse 9. Alright. Ecclesiastes chapter 6 verse 9, as it reads, better is the sight of the eyes than the wandering of the desire. This is also vanity and vexation of spirit. I'm gonna get that in GNT. See what that sound like in the GNT. Ecclesiastes chapter 6 verse 9 in the GNT, as it reads, it is useless. It is like chasing the wind. It is better to be satisfied with what you have than to be always wanting something else. And that's what we have with these Edomites sending stuff into outer space to look for answers. Alright? Same thing how it was with Esau's natural ass. Alright? He went back on his word because he's what's that word? Perfidious. He's a perfidious nigga. Alright? He goes back on his word. He breaks his word. He always has something in the back of his head that he have doubt for. Okay? And the fact that he sells out his own is evident around the world. He always wants something else. He won't want just mine. He wants yours too. Alright? Nothing. He ain't never satisfied. Okay? And he'll lie, cheat, steal, commit murder, and do all that stuff just to get it too. Alright? No shame about it. He don't care about switching directions or moving boundary marks. He don't care about none of that. Just to get what he wants. And as you can see, it's all evident throughout this world. Okay. If this nigga isn't vexing enough, alright, he still so-called he tried to steal our culture, but he can't take our rhythm. That's natural. So he can try to steal everything and try to block it off from us and tell us that we taking something from him. Would you believe this? I say believe that nigga not. Okay. And then you got 2/3 of Jake with selective memory. Okay. Alright. Selective memory because of that 501c3 plan it is. They don't mind wandering around. They don't mind wandering for Esau. Let's look up the word wandering right quick. Wandering, adjective, traveling aimlessly from place to place. Let me see. Itinerant. Itinerant. That's how I spell itinerant. Okay. To wandering. A wandering preacher. Or, let's see some synonyms. Synonyms are meander, ramble, roam, rove, trapeze. While all these words means to go about from place to place, usually without a plan or definite purpose. Wander implies an absence of an indifference to a fixed course, fond of wandering about the square just watching the people. Wander, the difference between wander and wonder, because people mix that up a lot. I know I have in the past. Wander. Said wander mean to travel aimlessly. For example, I often wander through the woods. It helps me to think. And you have the word wonder. Wander is spelled W-A-N-D-E-R. Wonder, W-O-N-D-E-R, which is also a verb. Means to consider or question some issue. To also wander goes with vagrant, nomad, as in nomadic tribes. Like we were in the desert for 40 years. Because of wandering. Wandering led to wandering. If you really think about it. Those who were listening to Cora and Dathan, they were wanderers. Okay, and thought. All 14,700 of them were wandering. Okay, in thought. Okay, and then they became wanderers toward the direction they were going, which was doom. Okay, and that whole generation had to die off within a period of 40 years in the desert. Okay, so wandering leads to wandering, most definitely, and it's vexing to those of the 1/3 that has to go through something the 2/3 were considering. So we have to separate ourselves from that.